me tell you something right now. Failure is not your enemy. Giving up is. The best don't just survive the fall, they own it. They rise higher, stronger, and unstoppable. You want to be the best? Then listen close, because this is how legends are made. Let me tell you something you already know but maybe don't fully believe yet. Failure doesn't define you at all. In fact, failure is nothing more than a test. A test of your hunger. A test of your resilience. A test of how badly you really want what you say you want. Because here's the truth, anybody can talk a big game when things are easy. Anybody can claim they're built for greatness when the sun is shining and the wind is at their back. But the real ones, the legends, the people who leave a mark on this world, they reveal themselves in the struggle. They show you who they are when everything is falling apart. Think about it, what separates the best from the rest isn't talent, it isn't luck. It isn't even intelligence. It's their relationship with failure. Most people run from it. They fear it. They let it paralyze them. But the greats, they don't just accept failure, they use it. They let it sharpen them. They treat it like information, like feedback, like the universe telling them, okay, that approach didn't work, now try something else. Take every single person you admire, whether it's an athlete, an entrepreneur, an artist, a scientist, and I promise you, their story isn't one smooth ride to the top. It's a series of falls, stumbles, and outright face plants. But here's what they did differently. They didn't stay down. They didn't let failure write the ending. They stood up, dusted themselves off, and said, what did this teach me? Failure is the world's greatest teacher if you're willing to listen. Every mistake is a lesson. Every setback is a setup. Every loss is just data telling you where to adjust. The best don't take failure personally, they take it strategically. They dissect it. They learn from it. And then they come back better, stronger, smarter. And let's be real, failure hurts. It stings. It knocks the wind out of you. But that pain, that discomfort, that's where the growth happens. That's where you find out what you're really made of. Comfort never made anyone great. Easy roads never built empires. The moments that feel like the end, those are actually the beginning if you choose to see them that way. So the next time you fall, and you will fall, remember this. It's not about how hard you hit the ground. It's about how fast you get up. It's about what you do next. The best don't avoid failure, they expect it. They know it's part of the process. They know every no brings them closer to a yes. Every closed door forces them to find another way. Every defeat is just preparation for the comeback. Failure isn't your enemy. Fear of failure is. The moment you stop running from it, the moment you start using it, that's when everything changes. That's when you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being the architect of your destiny. That's when you realize failure was never the end. It was just the fuel you needed to go further than you ever thought possible. So take that failure. Study it. Learn from it. Let it piss you off just enough to make you unstoppable. Because the best, they don't quit. They don't fold. They don't let a stumble become a surrender. They take that failure, they turn it into fuel, and they keep moving forward no matter what. And that's exactly what separates those who dream from those who do. That's the difference between wishing for a better life and building one. Failure isn't the end of your story unless you let it be. But if you're really built for greatness, if you're really meant for more, then failure is just the beginning. It's the spark. It's the fire. It's the thing that pushes you further than you ever thought you could go. So embrace it, use it. Let it drive you. Because the best never quit, they just find another way. And if you want to be among them, you'll do the same. Let me tell you something about life that nobody likes to admit when they're in the middle of the storm. Every single time you get knocked down, you're being given a secret opportunity. An opportunity to come back not just to where you were, but to a version of yourself that's stronger, wiser, and more dangerous than ever before. That's not some feel-good motivational nonsense. That's the cold, hard truth that every great champion, every legendary comeback story proves again and again. Think about nature for a second. A forest fire burns everything to the ground, but what grows back? New life, stronger trees, a more resilient ecosystem. Your setbacks work the exact same way. They burn away what wasn't working, what wasn't true to who you really are, what was holding you back without you even realizing it. And from those ashes, that's where real growth happens. That's where unbeatable strength is forged. Here's what most people get wrong. They think the comeback is just about getting back to where they were before they fell. No, that's small thinking. The real power comes when you understand that the setback was actually clearing the path for something greater. When you lost that job, when that relationship ended, when that deal fell through, those weren't roadblocks. Those were redirects. The universe wasn't saying no to you, it was saying not this way, I've got something better for you. Look at any athlete who's ever come back from a career-threatening injury. They never return as the same player. They come back with a deeper appreciation, a fiercer determination, a more refined skill set. The injury, the setback, forced them to rebuild from the ground up, and in that rebuilding process, they became something greater than they were before. That's the hidden gift in every setback. It strips away the old version of you to make room for the upgraded model. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the one who's never been knocked down, it's the one who's been flattened, humiliated, counted out, and decided to rebuild themselves piece by piece. That person, they're operating on a different level. They've seen the bottom, so they're not afraid of it anymore. They've been broken, so they know exactly how strong they really are. They've had everything taken away, so they understand what truly matters. This is why history's greatest comebacks always dwarf the setbacks that preceded them. The business that went bankrupt and came back to dominate the industry. The artist who was dropped by their label only to create their masterpiece. The underdog team that everyone laughed at until they shocked the world. These aren't feel-good stories, they're blueprints. They prove that the size of your comeback isn't determined by the size of your fall, it's determined by the size of your fight. And here's the secret they don't tell you: the comeback starts long before the world sees it. It starts in those quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts and you choose to believe again. It starts with the first workout after the injury, the first phone call after the rejection, the first small step when every part of you wants to quit. The comeback is built in the dark, through thousands of invisible decisions to keep going when nobody's watching and nobody believes in you yet. That's why setbacks are actually advantages in disguise. They force you to develop the kind of grit, creativity, and mental toughness that can't be learned any other way. Easy success makes you soft. Overcoming adversity makes you dangerous. When you've had to fight for every inch, when you've had to rebuild from nothing, you've developed from an asset people who've muscled, make of observance that people who've never struggled simply can't understand. This is why the greatest entrepreneurs often come from nothing. Why the most inspiring leaders usually have a history of failures. Why the most unstoppable performers are frequently the ones who were told they'd never make it. The struggle isn't just part of their story, it's the reason their story matters. Without the setback, there could never have been that particular comeback. So if you're in the middle of what feels like a devastating setback right now, understand this: you're not being punished. You're being prepared. The version of you that's coming isn't just going to recover, it's going to exceed. It's going to shock people. It's going to do things that the old you never even dreamed possible. Because that's what real comebacks do. They don't just bring you back, they launch you forward. The pain you're feeling, that's the old you breaking apart to make room for what's coming. The uncertainty, that's the universe clearing space for something better. The fear, that's just your mind trying to protect you from the transformation that's already underway. Every champion knows this truth in their bones. It's never about how hard you get hit. It's about what you build from the pieces. The greatest victories aren't the ones that come easy, they're the ones that had to be fought for, the ones that seemed impossible until they weren't. That's the power of the comeback. That's why it always outshines the setback. Because when you rise from the ashes, you don't just return, you evolve. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now, whether you can see it yet or not. The pieces are moving. The lessons are being learned. The strength is being gathered. The comeback isn't just coming, it's already begun. All that's left is for you to meet, eat. Let's cut through the noise and get real about something most people spend their entire lives running from: pain. That gut-wrenching, soul-crushing, makes you want to scream into your pillow feeling that hits when things get hard. Here's the raw truth nobody tells you. Pain isn't your enemy. Your willingness to endure it determines everything about your destiny. The moment you understand this is the moment you unlock a level of power most people will never know. Think about the last time you wanted to quit. Really quit. Maybe it was during a brutal workout when your muscles were screaming. Maybe it was in the middle of a project that seemed impossible. Maybe it was after rejection number 100 when you thought, why am I even doing this? That pain you felt, it was temporary. It passed. But imagine if you'd quit, that decision would have stayed with you forever. Every time you faced a new challenge, that old quit would whisper in your ear, remember last time? Just give up. That's the real cost of surrender. It doesn't just affect one moment, it poisons every moment after. Here's what the warriors, the legends, the people who leave marks on this world understand. Pain is a currency. You pay it now or you pay it later with interest. The pain of discipline is measured in sweat and sacrifice. The pain of regret is measured in what if, and if only. One lasts minutes, hours, maybe days. The other, it can haunt you for decades. The best don't avoid pain, they choose which pain to endure. They'd rather feel the burn of effort today than the soul-crushing weight of knowing they could have been great but quit too soon. Let's talk biology for a second. When your body screams at you to stop during a workout, you're not actually near your limit. Science shows we all have a buffer, extra strength, extra endurance our brain holds in reserve. That pain, it's not a stop sign. It's a test. Your mind is asking, how badly do you want this? Every time you push through, you're not just building muscle or skill, you're rewiring your nervous system to associate discomfort with growth. That's how ordinary people transform into forces of nature. Now apply this beyond the gym. That project that's kicking your ass, that dream everyone says is unrealistic, the pain of pushing forward is temporary. The agony of abandoning your potential, that's forever. History isn't made by people who avoided discomfort, it's written by those who understood that suffering is the price of entry for anything worth having. Navy SEALs have a saying, the only easy day was yesterday. They don't expect comfort. They expect to be tested. And that mindset turns ordinary men into legends. Here's the psychological secret no one tells you. Quitting is addictive. The first time you bail when it gets hard, you create a neural pathway. The next time, it's easier. Soon you're not just quitting big things, you're abandoning small challenges before they even get difficult. But the opposite is also true. Every time you endure, you strengthen your resilience muscle. Olympic athletes don't have some magical pain tolerance, they've just practiced embracing the suck more times than their competitors. Consider this right now, someone with less talent than you is outworking you simply because they're willing to sit in the fire longer. They understand what you're about to grasp. The pain of effort has an expiration date. The frustration of learning a new skill fades as you improve. The exhaustion of building something great disappears when you hold the finished product. But the phantom pain of quitting, that ghost never stops whispering. There's a reason we remember historical figures who persevered against impossible odds. Harriet Tubman didn't turn back because the Underground Railroad was dangerous. Thomas Edison didn't abandon his experiments after 999 failures. They understood a fundamental law of existence. Temporary pain builds legacy. Permanent retreat builds regret. The fire that feels like it's consuming you is actually forging you if you don't jump out of the furnace too soon. Watch any championship game. The pivotal moment isn't when someone gets knocked down, it's that microsecond decision whether to stay down or rise. That choice echoes forever. In your life right now, you're in some version of that moment. The pain won't kill you, but quitting, that murders possibilities you haven't even imagined yet. The next time you want to bail, ask yourself one question: will this pain matter in 5 years? The soreness from yesterday's workout is already gone. The frustration of that failed attempt is fading. But walking away from your potential, that's a scar that never heals. The best don't have fewer moments of pain, they just have more moments where they refuse to let that pain decide their future. This is your wake-up call. That voice telling you to quit. It's not wisdom, it's fear in disguise. Real strength isn't the absence of struggle. It's the refusal to let struggle have final say. Temporary pain builds temporary discomfort. Permanent quitting builds permanent limitations. You're stronger than you think, but you'll never know how strong until you stop running from the very thing that's trying to make you great. So breathe through it. Lean into it. Let it burn. Because on the other side of this pain isn't just success, it's the unshakable knowledge that you're the kind of person who doesn't fold when it matters. And that changes everything. Let's get brutally honest about why most people never reach their potential. They confuse explanations with exclusions. They think listing reasons why something didn't work counts as wisdom, when in reality, it's just dressed up surrender. Here's the hard truth that separates winners from the rest. Obstacles don't care about your reasons. The market doesn't care about your setbacks. The world only responds to one thing: what you actually do about it. Think about the last time you heard someone truly great explain their success. Notice what's missing. The long list of why they almost didn't make it. Champions don't focus on what went wrong, they focus on what they're going to do differently. No equipment. They train with body weight. No money. They bootstrap. No support. They become their own damn cheerleader. This isn't about positive thinking, it's about ruthless pragmatism. The best understand that energy spent justifying limitations is energy stolen from solutions. Let me break down the champion's mindset in practical terms. When faced with a roadblock, they ask 3 questions. What can I control right now? What's one adjustment I can make immediately? What's the hidden opportunity here? This isn't theoretical, it's how real people achieve impossible things. Consider wartime innovation, entire industries born from scarcity. Synthetic rubber because real rubber was blockaded. Jet engines developed under bombardment. The greatest leaps often come when normal options are taken away. Your limitations? They're just forcing you to discover better approaches you'd never try otherwise. Now let's talk about the excuses we all make. I don't have enough time translates to I haven't made this a priority. I don't have the right connections means I haven't put myself out there enough. Every single excuse contains its own solution if you're willing to dig for it. The best don't deny reality, they just refuse to be paralyzed by it. They know that resources can be created, knowledge can be acquired, and disadvantages can be turned into strengths with enough creativity and grit. There's a psychological shift that happens when you stop explaining why you can't and start figuring out how you could. It rewires your brain from victimhood to ownership. Suddenly setbacks become puzzles instead of stop signs. Rejections become data points. Failures become feedback. This isn't some mystical mindset, it's the practical approach of everyone who consistently outperforms expectations. Look at nature's ultimate adapters, cockroaches surviving nuclear blasts, tardigrades living in space. They don't complain about changing environments, they evolve. Human beings have this same capacity in spades if we choose to use it. Your current circumstances aren't your final destination, they're just the raw materials you've been given to work with. The question isn't whether they're ideal, the question is what you're going to build with them. This principle applies at every level. Can't get a loan? Build credit differently. Facing discrimination? Create your own platform. Born into poverty? Use that hunger as rocket fuel. History's greatest figures weren't those who had it easy, they were those who took whatever they had, however meager, and made it work. The brutal truth is this: the world doesn't need to hear why you didn't succeed. It only responds to what you actually achieve. Every minute spent justifying is a minute not spent adjusting. Every explanation offered is creative energy diverted from solutions. This isn't about being hard on yourself, it's about respecting yourself enough to respect yourself. Consider this right now. Someone with your same obstacles is out there making progress. Not because they have some secret advantage, but because they've made the mental shift from why I can't to how I can. That's the only difference that ever matters. The best don't wait for perfect conditions, they create movement whatever conditions exist. There's a military saying, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Winners understand this applies to everything. Your business plan will change. Your fitness journey will require adjustments. Your relationships will need recalibration. The variable that determines success isn't whether things go wrong, it's how quickly and effectively you adapt when they do. This is why discipline beats motivation every time. Motivation relies on ideal circumstances. Discipline creates results regardless of circumstances. The best athletes train in bad weather. The best writers write through writer's block. The best entrepreneurs pivot when markets shift. They've internalized the fundamental truth: excuses expire, but adjustments compound. Your life right now is the sum total of all the adjustments you've made or failed to make. The good news: you can start changing that equation immediately. The next obstacle you face, whether it's a failed project, a financial setback, or a personal rejection, isn't proof that you should quit. It's an intelligence test asking one question: how badly do you want this? The answer isn't in your words. It's in your willingness to look that obstacle dead in the eye and say, okay, what's the move? That's the champion's mindset. That's the difference between those who dream and those who do. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary, not by avoiding challenges, but by refusing to let those challenges have the final say. So the next time you're tempted to explain why something didn't work, stop. Take that same mental energy and redirect it into one simple question: what can I try next? That shift alone will put you ahead of 95% of people. Because in the end, life doesn't reward those with the best excuses, it rewards those with the best adjustments. There's a reason we're drawn to stories of triumph over adversity. Because buried deep in our DNA, we know this fundamental truth: real growth only happens under pressure. The most extraordinary versions of ourselves aren't discovered in moments of comfort and ease, but forged in the crucible of struggle. Think about diamonds. They begin as ordinary carbon, transformed into something extraordinary only through through immense pressure and heat over time. Your greatest potential works exactly the same way. Right now, someone out there is going through hell and coming out the other side fundamentally changed. Maybe it's the entrepreneur facing bankruptcy who will rebuild an empire. Maybe it's the athlete recovering from injury who will come back stronger. Maybe it's the artist working through heartbreak who will create their masterpiece. These aren't hypotheticals, they're the repeating patterns of history. Every significant breakthrough, every legendary comeback, every against all odds victory shares one common thread. They were preceded by periods of incono. Consider this: the most resilient trees grow where the winds are strongest. Their roots dig deeper, their trunks grow thicker, their ability to withstand storms becomes unmatched. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's observable botany. Adversity creates strength when approached with the right mindset. Your current struggles, they're not random punishments. They're specifically tailored resistance training for your character, your resilience, your future capacity for greatness. There's a neurological phenomenon called post-traumatic growth that flies in the face of conventional wisdom. While trauma can certainly break people, studies show that when processed correctly, challenging experiences can actually lead to higher levels of creativity, emotional intelligence, and life satisfaction than existed before the trauma. Your brain is wired to learn more from difficulty than from ease. Those neural pathways that form when you're pushing through for adversity, they become superhighways of capability that serve you forever. Look at any innovation born from wartime necessity: radar, penicillin, even the entire field of plastic surgery. Constraints breed creativity in ways comfort never could. Your limitations, your struggles, your dark nights of the soul, they're not roadblocks, they're forcing functions for innovation. When the easy path is blocked, you discover K's block. When plan A fails, you invent plans B through Z. This is how ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things, not despite their struggles, but because of them. There's a reason we remember the stories of those who overcame more than those who had it easy. Helen Keller's brilliance shines brighter because she conquered darkness and silence. Nelson Mandela's leadership carries more weight because it was tempered by 27 years in prison. Your current challenges aren't obscuring your light, they're creating the contrast that will make it visible from miles away. The world doesn't need more people who had everything handed to them. It needs more people who know what to do when everything is taken away. This isn't about romanticizing suffering, it's about recognizing its transformative potential. The same pressure that crushes one person polishes another. The difference isn't the pressure itself, but the decision about what to do with it. Will you let it break you, or will you let it shape you into something harder, sharper, more brilliant? That choice is always yours. Every significant growth in nature requires some form of stress. Muscles only strengthen when pushed beyond their comfort. Seeds must crack open to grow. Butterflies need to struggle from their cocoons to develop the strength to fly. Your current difficulties aren't signs that you're off path. They're evidence that you're exactly where you need to be to transform into your next evolution. History's most inspiring figures weren't born under spotlights. They were forged in shadows. Their greatness wasn't in never falling, but in how they stood back up. Their brilliance wasn't in avoiding darkness, but in becoming so luminous that they could light the way for others. This is your invitation to join their ranks. Not by waiting for easier circumstances, but by using exactly what you're going through right now as the raw material for your own transformation. The most valuable diamonds aren't found lying on the surface, they're buried deep, formed under pressure, and only revealed through persistent excavation. Your current struggles are that excavation process. They're removing everything that isn't essential, everything that can't withstand pressure, everything that doesn't serve your highest purpose. What remains will be unshakable, brilliant, and capable of reflecting light in ways you can't yet imagine. So when the night feels darkest, remember, this isn't the end of your story. This is the necessary prelude to your brightest chapter. The pressure you feel isn't breaking you, it's preparing you. The struggle isn't pointless, it's purposeful. And the person who emerges won't just be stronger, they'll be the kind of radiant, unbreakable force that changes everything they touch. That's not wishful thinking. It's the repeating pattern of every meaningful transformation in history. Your turn is coming. The darkness isn't your enemy. It's the very thing that will make your light impossible to ignore. The greatest illusion in personal growth is the idea that failure exists as some final destination, some catastrophic endpoint where dreams go to die. Nothing could be further from the truth. What we call losing is actually the universe's most effective classroom, a brutal but perfectly designed education system, where the tuition is paid in discomfort and the diploma is written in resilience. Every so-called loss contains within it the exact lessons you need to evacuate and win if you're eventually willing to do the work of unpacking them. Let's dissect this at a neurological level. When you fail at something, your brain does something extraordinary. It enters a hyper-aware state where neural connections related to that experience are strengthened. In simple terms, you remember what doesn't work with crystal clarity. This isn't some evolutionary mistake, it's nature's way of ensuring you don't make the same errors twice. The frustration you feel after a setback isn't just emotion, it's biological reinforcement, your nervous system marking that pathway as do not enter for future reference. Consider how children learn to walk. They don't stand up once and magically stride across the room. They fall hundreds of times. But here's what's fascinating. No parent watches their toddler stumble and thinks, well, guess walking isn't for you. Why? Because we instinctively understand that falling isn't the opposite of walking, it's part of learning to walk. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, we lose this wisdom. We start viewing stumbles as stop signs rather than necessary steps in the process. The most successful people in any field share one common trait. They've reframed failure as information. A chef doesn't taste a ruined dish and think I'm terrible at cooking. They think too much salt. Adjust next time. A programmer doesn't see a crashed app as proof they should quit. They check the error logs and debug. This isn't positive thinking, it's practical problem solving. When you remove the emotional stigma from failure, what remains is pure data, actionable intelligence you can use to improve. There's a concept in machine learning called gradient descent, where algorithms intentionally make wrong decisions thousands of times to gradually approximate the correct solution. The failures aren't really failures, they're the algorithm's way of mapping the territory of what doesn't work so it can zero in on what does. Your brain operates on similar principles. Every mistake is your personal algorithm eliminating unproductive pathways and homing in on success. History's greatest innovations are littered with failures that were actually necessary steps. The light bulb wasn't invented in one attempt, it was the result of systematically eliminating every non-working filament option. Penicillin was discovered because a scientist didn't throw out a ruined experiment. The common thread. These breakthroughs didn't happen despite the setbacks, they happened because of them. The so-called failures weren't roadblocks, they were signposts saying not this way, try something else. This mindset shift transforms how you approach challenges. When a sales pitch falls flat, you're not losing a client, you're learning what messaging doesn't resonate. When a workout plan doesn't yield results, you're not wasting time, you're discovering what your body doesn't respond to. When a relationship ends, you're not being rejected, you're gaining clarity on what you truly need in a partner. Each experience, regardless of outcome, is adding to your personal database of what works and what doesn't. The business world's most effective leaders practice something called intelligent fast failure, the art of failing quickly, learning rapidly, and iterating immediately. They understand that time spent avoiding failure is often time wasted, because until you know what doesn't work, you can't possibly know what does. Silicon Valley's entire ecosystem is built on this principle. That 10 failures with lessons learned are more valuable than one safe, uninformative success. There's a psychological phenomenon called the focusing illusion, where we give far more weight to failures in the moment than they deserve in the grand scheme. That presentation that went poorly, in 5 years it will either be forgotten or remembered as the turning point that made you a better speaker. That business venture that didn't work out, it's either a footnote or the foundation of your eventual success. The pain of failure is temporary, but the wisdom gained is permanent. Athletes have a saying, you either win or you learn. Notice they don't say or you lose. This isn't wordplay, it's a fundamental recognition that growth comes from extracting lessons from every outcome. Watch any elite athlete review game footage, they spend far more time analyzing their mistakes than reveling in their successes. Why? Because they know that's where the gold is, in the gaps between where they were and where they want to be. The Japanese art of kintsugi provides a powerful metaphor: broken pottery repaired with gold, making the repaired pieces more beautiful than the original. Your failures work the same way. They're the cracks filled with wisdom that ultimately make you more valuable, more resilient, more interesting than someone who's never been tested. This perspective transforms fear of failure into curiosity. Instead of asking, what if I fail? You start asking, what will I learn if this doesn't work? That shift alone removes the paralyzing dread of imperfection and replaces it with the energizing pursuit of growth. You begin to see every attempt, regardless of outcome, as progress, because even the worst-case scenario still moves you forward with new understanding. The people who change the world aren't those who avoid failure, they're those who fail so intelligently and learn so completely that they eventually run out of ways to fail. Their overnight success is usually a decade of carefully analyzed mistakes, leading inevitably to mastery. Your path is no different. Every stumble is simply the universe whispering, now, you know better, keep going. The mind is your most powerful weapon. Every battle you'll ever fight, against doubt, against affirm, against the limits of what seems possible, is won or lost between your ears long before the world ever sees the results. Your mind isn't just along for the ride, it's the control center, the command hub, the difference between giving up when it gets hard and pushing through when everyone else would quit. Think about the last time you faced something truly difficult. What determined whether you persevered or gave up wasn't the circumstance itself, but what you told yourself about that circumstance. That's how powerful your mindset is. It can make obstacles seem insurmountable or like stepping stones, depending on how you choose to frame them. The world's top performers across every discipline, from Olympic athletes to Navy SEALs to billionaire entrepreneurs, all understand this fundamental truth. Physical limits are often just mental limits in disguise. When your body screams that it's done, you've typically got about 40% more left in reserve, but accessing it requires winning the mental battle first. This explains why two people with near identical physical abilities can achieve radically different results. One sees discomfort as a reason to stop, while the other sees it as proof they're moving in the right direction. Your internal dialogue creates your external reality. Tell yourself you're not good enough often enough until you start collecting evidence to prove it true. Tell yourself you're capable of figuring things out, and suddenly solutions start appearing. This isn't mystical thinking, it's the self-fulfilling prophecy in action. Your brain is constantly filtering reality based on your dominant thoughts, highlighting what confirms your beliefs and downplaying what contradicts them. The best don't just work on their skills, they deliberately program their mental operating system to expect success, to embrace challenges, to interpret setbacks as temporary rather than permanent. Consider how differently people respond to the same situation. One person gets rejected and thinks I'm terrible at this. Another gets rejected and thinks I'm one no closer to a yes. Same event, vastly different outcomes based purely on mindset. The most successful people aren't necessarily those who face fewer obstacles. They're those who've trained their minds to process obstacles differently. They've learned to separate facts from interpretations. I failed this time, fact from I'm a failure, destructive interpretation. This mental discipline acts like armor against the inevitable doubts and criticisms that come with pursuing anything worthwhile. When external voices say you can't, your trained mind responds with watch me. When fear whispers, what if you fail? Your mindset answers, then I'll learn. This is how ordinary people accomplish extraordinary things, not because they never doubt, but because they've practiced dismissing doubt like an unhelpful background noise rather than an absolute truth. The battlefield of your mind is where championships are won, businesses are built, and personal transformations take root, often long before the physical results manifest. Every external change begins with an internal decision to believe when it's easier to doubt, to persist when it's easier to quit, to redefine what's possible by first expanding what you believe. That's real power, not just having dreams, but cultivating the mindset that makes them inevitable. Here's the raw, unfiltered truth you need to hear right now. Your story isn't over yet. Every setback, every failure, every moment you thought you couldn't go on, those weren't endings. They were setups. Setups for a comeback so powerful it will rewrite everything you thought was possible. The world doesn't decide your limits, you do. Every time you choose to get back up, every time you refuse to let doubt win, every time you stare fear in the face and say not today, you're not just surviving, you're building a legacy. This is your wake-up call. That dream you've been putting off, start now. That fear that's been holding you back, crush it. That voice inside whispering you're not enough, prove it wrong. You were never meant to live small, to settle, to accept anything less than extraordinary. The fire inside you, that relentless, unstoppable drive, it's there for a reason. Stop ignoring it. Stop apologizing for it. Burn so bright that the world has no choice but to take notice. This is your moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now someday. Stand up. Step forward. And claim the life you were born to live. The only question left is, are you ready to rise? Because the world is waiting for the version of you that refuses to stay down. Let them see it.